Canada's population has plummeted in the third quarter of this year to non-permanent residents leaving. But there's a catch. The Liberals did something that basically offsets all of the decline, and it's opened up the lid to an explosion in population. Let's get into this report. I hope you're ready, Canada. Would you take a look at that? Canada's population fell in the third quarter, driven by a drop in non-permanent residents, StatsCan says. How many people left Canada in the third quarter? Preliminary data published on Wednesday shows a decline in population of about 76,068 people, or 0.2% between July 1st and October 1st. Since getting elected in the springtime, Mark Carney promised that he would get immigration under control. The majority of the outflow are from study permits, 73,682 people. Statistics Canada says the drop in non-permanent residents is the largest it's seen since it began keeping comparable records in the third quarter since 1971. You probably didn't know this, but on December 15th, so just 2 days ago, Bill C-3, an act to amend the Citizenship Act of 2025, comes into effect. That's right, it has come into effect. And what does that mean? What is this bill? Let's take a look at it. What was Canada's Citizen Act before Bill C-3? Before Bill C-3 came into effect, Canada's Citizen Act limited the passing of citizenship to the first generation of people born or adopted abroad. This meant that Canadian citizens could only pass on citizenship to or access a different grant of citizenship for a child born or adopted outside of Canada if the parents was either born or naturalized in Canada before the child's birth or adoption. 2 years ago, the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice found that parts of the Citizens Act relating to first-generation limits was found to be unconstitutional. So what did Mark Carney do? Well, on June 15th, so basically right after becoming Prime Minister, he introduced Bill C-3, an act to amend the Citizenship Act in 2025 to extend citizenship by descent beyond first generation in a way that is more inclusive, of course, and protects values of Canadian citizenship. The bill received royal assent on November 20th, 2025, and came into effect on December 15th, 2025. Before I go over the numbers of how many potential new Canadians this is, I want to go over what it means. Stephen Harper imposed first-generation limits on citizens by descent, which was introduced in 2009. This new bill automatically grants or restores Canadian citizenship to tens of thousands of lost Canadians born abroad before the law, even if it has zero recent ties to Canada. So starting 2 days ago, going forward, the new bill allows Canadians born abroad to pass citizenship to their children born overseas if the parents spent only 3 years cumulative in Canada at any point before the child's birth. There's no time limit on the accumulating those days. No language test whatsoever. Opposition amendments for tougher checks were also voted down. Just so people are aware, this isn't fixing a small glitch. It opens the floodgates to citizens of convenience. People who have never lived here in their entire life, have never paid any taxes, even speak our language, but now they could claim full citizen rights like voting, passports, healthcare, access for family, you name it, they get it. Mark Carney's Liberals rammed this thing through with the support of NDP, 177 to 163 votes in third reading. Critics warn that this devalues what it means to be Canadian, turning citizenship into an endless chain of minimal connections required. Trudeau once praised China's dictatorship for getting things done without opposition. Now, under Mark Carney, we're quietly expanding citizenship globally while everybody in Canada struggles with housing, costs, and borders. This is diluting the value of the Canadian citizenship forever. Wake up, Canada. Our identity is being redefined without a real national debate. What do you think about this new bill? Let's take a look at how many people this could potentially be. I just want to say a few things here. They say 3 years in a parent's life, and then they can hand citizenship to their children. We have trouble knowing how many people have overstayed their stay in Canada. How are they going to find out if you've gone on vacation to Canada every summer for 2 months? How are they going to calculate how long they've been in Canada for? That is a question that I have. They don't know how to do math. We all know what this is. The Liberals want to do this. Well, they've already done it in order to get votes, because you could vote from abroad and vote for the Liberals because they approved this wonderful new bill. It's all about votes. Because you have zero connection. You don't even speak English, and you are able to vote in our democracy, and then it affects our youth, the youth that can barely afford to eat. And we're going to take a look at some data that I got for you today. Our youth are putting all of their food expense on credit cards. And you're not going to believe this. There are 5 famous Americans that become Canadian citizens thanks to the new citizenship law. Madonna and Hillary Clinton. Now Hillary Clinton can vote for Mark Carney in the next federal election. The Parliamentary Budget Officer believes that over the next 5 years, that would mean 115,000 people will become Canadian citizens. But this is a low estimate. They have absolutely zero idea how many people this is. Bloc Québécois believe it's between 150,000 and 300,000 individuals, but I heard numbers throwing around between 500,000 and 3 million new Canadians. Don't you just love it, Canada? Our hospitals are bursting at its seams. There are 76,000 Canadians that passed away on a wait list to get medical treatment. Housing is unaffordable for the vast majority of Canadians. 25% of the population has food insecurity, and their prime objective is to get this bill passed and approved, which it's already done. I just want to show you this. Let's never forget who voted for this thing. Bill C-3. Liberals 100% said yes. NDP 100% yes. And Elizabeth May at the Green Party said yes. Bloc Québécois said no. And every single conservative also said no. And Mark Carney has a message for you. Who cares? Who cares if we give citizenship to babies of babies across the world? You are now Canadian. I can't wait until you vote for him. We're going to move on to pipelines. The vast majority of Canadians, 75% of Canadians want pipeline to the East Coast, to the South, to the West Coast. They want pipelines everywhere. 3 out of 4 Canadians say yes to pipelines.
A new poll shows that support for new pipelines from Alberta is growing. The Montreal Economic Institute and Ipsos survey showed 75% of Canadians support the construction of new pipelines to the East Coast and to BC. That's up by 14 points compared to last year.
We can look at a couple of metrics, but productivity, value in terms of exportation, $1 out of 4 exported are from the oil and gas sector, and nice paying job. So with all this added value and economy, Canadians are simply understanding that.
The survey also found 71% of Canadians find the approval process takes too long. Pollsters say the tariff war is just one of the factors. A new poll shows that support...
There you have it, Canada. Canadians realize if we don't get these pipelines, 25% of our revenue comes from the pipelines and the oil. We're selling everything at a discount to the United States. Time for change. We need to sell our natural resources to the world. And the vast majority of Canadians agree, including Liberals. A new Leger poll came out and showed that 68% of Canadians say businesses pass on most or some of the cost of the industrial carbon tax to consumers. Here we have Franco from the Canadian Taxpayer Federation. And for everybody out there, I'm doing a live tomorrow with Franco at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Do not miss this one. We're going to do 30 minutes of panelist discussion, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. All of you could leave your questions for myself, Franco, and Stacy. That's going to be on the panel tomorrow live. Don't miss it. Let's take a look at the data from the Leger poll, Canadian Taxpayer Federation. We're probably going to discuss this tomorrow as well, but let's look at the data. The first section that says 43% is businesses pay little of the cost, pass most of the industrial tax on consumers. 43%. Men believe this is true more than women, 48% to 39%. And if you're over the age of 35, 47% believe this is true. What's interesting is Alberta, 55% believe that you pay the cost, and Atlantic Canada, 54%. Now the next one, which is 25%. Businesses pay some of the cost and pass some of the cost of the industrial tax on consumers. 25%. And then only 12%. Get that. Only 12% believe that businesses pay most of the cost of the industrial carbon tax themselves and pass very little of the cost to you. That means 88%, because we could just remove the people that don't know. 88% believe that you pay for it. So they've actually done the calculation and removed the unknown, and it came up with 54% say that you just pay the cost, and 32% say the businesses pay just some of it. You pay some as well. That means that the vast majority of Canadians believe that the industrial carbon tax is costing us a fortune. And that's why when you go to the grocery store and all of the prices are tripled from before, it's because of this wonderful additional cost. You're going to get a kick out of this. You know how Canadians and the Elbows Up crew said that they are going to be boycotting America and buy only Canadian? Here's the thing. The most popular grocery store in Canada is Costco, which is an American company. Its value proposition is clearly overrides nationalism. The only exception to this is the province of Quebec, where they in fact go to Maxis, which is Loblaws. Let's take a look at this report.
Costco est premier, bon Maxi, Super C, Walmart qui arrive plus loin.
I'm not going to put you through this because it's in French, but I just wanted you to take a look at the statistics. The number one grocery store in Canada is Costco. Absolutely amazing job, Canada. Keep the pressure on until Michael Ma decides to resign. He got a bunch of fan mail today. Check it out.
Next one. Yeah, simple message. Hope he gets it.
He's not seeming to get any of our other messages, so.
Another one?
That's right, betrayal through the constituency office. Resign immediately. I want to see tens of thousands of these pieces of cardboard to go through that door into his office so he can't even open the door.
Okay, that's it. That's the last one.
Please don't be the last one. Hopefully they're back tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. And hopefully thousands upon thousands of people make the trip and start shoving posters and cards and all sorts of fan mail through that slit into his office until he resigns. Good job, Canada. Doug Ford was not finished with all his wonderful announcements to turn things around in the economy in Ontario. First, he announced the Las Vegas of the North. Today, he announces the only way to fund this Las Vegas of the North is to create a brand new bank.
And I just want to thank each and every one of them for coming out in support of this event. We're here today to launch Toronto's bid to host the new Defence, Security and Resilience Bank. This bank is being launched at a time when Canada, along with our allies, faces a level of global uncertainty and instability that we haven't seen since the Second World War. In the face of the uncertainty that we're facing, our allies are investing to defend our democracies and protect our way of life. Here in Canada, the federal government is increasing defense spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. I want to
I don't know what this bank is going to do, but to me, it sounds like a whole lot of money laundering. We're going to create this brand new bank. And we're going to commit 5% of NATO spending, and we're going to shove all of Canada's taxpayer dollars into Doug Ford's brand new bank. Here we go. Another day, another article from our beautiful mainstream media. My advice actually would be don't go. Just don't go. Experts. What experts? Is this a CTV expert? Warns Canadians about US travel risks. So there's something like 36 million border crossings a year down to the United States from Canada and return. And there's something like a couple of hundred that get detained. That is a rounding error. So go ahead, CTV. Tell us again about your expert advice saying just don't go. Don't go get some of that vitamin D. Don't take your kids to Disneyland because you are going to be detained. By the way, statistically speaking, you have higher odds of winning the lottery 30 times in your lifetime or getting struck by 56 lightning bolts than you do getting detained by ICE at the border. Here's a perfectly normal statistic. 1 in 5 workers is a government employee. Perfectly normal. So if you're sitting at the park and you're looking around at other people walking their dog and you see 10 people, 2 of them will be government employees. If there's something that I can't stand, it's David Crocken from CBC. He is by far the absolute worst journalist ever in history of Canada. Jamal Giovanni offered Mark Carney help because he knows JD Vance, and this is what David had to say about it.
Does Pierre Poilievre know he's offering his services to Mark Carney? Because it seems like there's a skip being stepped to say if Mark Carney, like, you know, there's another leader in the middle of this. Do they know about this? Do we know, Kate?
That's a good question. Many people today have asked me the question, how involved was the leader's office in this interview, or did they know about this interview? And I tell them I will happily talk to any MP who wants to talk to me, regardless of whether or not they get a sanctioned approval to speak with me. So I couldn't tell you.
It's just an interesting offer to be made to the Prime Minister.
All I have to say is he should call his boss, Mark Carney, and Mark Carney's going to give David some advice. Who cares? Who cares? He's trying to help Canada. He is not helping Canada. He needs to lose his job. Remember when I told you I got some statistics? The percentage of Canadians using savings or borrowing money to purchase food per generation. Generation Z, 1997 to 2012. Our Canadian youth, 46% of our Canadian youth are using a credit card to buy food in the grocery store, or they're borrowing money just to make ends meet and be able to feed themselves. That is how broken this country is. These statistics are mind-blasting. Millennials, 35%. Generation X, 35%. The boomers, 28%. And the silent generation, 13%. Our Canadian youth are barely able to survive. This is a wake-up call. And Mark Carney's generational debt is going to make this number even higher. Danielle Smith is playing 4D chess right now. Because Mark Carney removed all of the emissions cap, she's now eyeing to send Alberta oil through Washington. Forget David Eby and British Columbia. That is terrible for BC because we need the revenue that this is going to bring us. But Alberta's like, if Saskatchewan's going to send its potash through Washington, why don't we just start sending our oil to the same place? David Eby is set on destroying the province of British Columbia. Mark Carney just came out with a brand new propaganda video saying we will be our own very best customer. We're going to plug ourselves back into ourselves to give us infinite power.
We will build Canadian by becoming our own best customer. With our new Buy Canadian policy, whenever the federal government spends, we will select Canadian suppliers by default, rather than using the current best efforts approach. And this new approach will extend to all federal agencies, all crown corporations, such as Build Canada Homes, such as Alto, High Speed Rail, and such as our spending from our new Defence Investment Agency.
What about BC ferries? Are we still buying those 4 ferries for $1 billion from China using China steel? What about those submarines from South Korea? Are we still buying those, Mark Carney? What else are we buying from overseas? This has to be one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my entire life. When you plug a cable back into itself, it does absolutely nothing. Doug Ford embarrassed himself on the world stage again. This guy really needs to open up his eyeballs and look at some data once in a while.
Canadians are no longer flying to Florida. They're not. The snowbirds have basically, it's dried up. There's been an organic boycott of tourism into America. Do you support that? And are you going to go to Florida this year?
Yeah, so let me tell you, it's going to be the first time I'm not going to Florida. But I talked to so many people. Don't let this guy, Trump, determine and ruin your life and everything. That's my personal choice. Maybe some families have gone to Florida their whole lives. Go to Florida. You know, that's great. But I encourage you to stay here and support local tourism. But you can't let the one tyrant change our lives, right? You just can't let it happen. I'm doing it out of my own personal choice because I just can't do it. But don't let this guy change your lives. If you go down and you see, you know, maybe their grandparents are down there, maybe they're somewhere else. So we'll get through this, but they're hurting down there right now. They're hurting on all fronts. They're hurting on their economy. President Trump is at the lowest rating that any president has been in the first year, and God knows probably 100 years. So it's taking effect. And I always say, we love our American friends, and the Americans love.
Is taking effect. Let's take a look at some data. This is Doug Ford's post. Well, Ron DeSantis has posted and it got 1.6 million views. He wrote, Florida breaks its own record again. 34.4 million visitors in the second quarter of 2025. They're seeing record amount of visitors. More than ever before in Florida history. And Doug Ford says they are hurting. They are hurting so bad because 2 Canadians are no longer going down to Florida. Doug Ford and whoever else is supporting Doug Ford. Pierre Poilievre says that if he were prime minister, he doesn't care what the First Nations say. He would build the pipelines immediately. Mark Carney, on the other hand, he needs First Nation approval first. Meaning one guy says, yeah, we're going to give you a pipeline, but First Nations are going to stop it. Or Pierre Poilievre, let's build and let's drill, baby, drill. And Pierre Poilievre speaking Canadians' language because 75% of all Canadians want those pipelines, and it's taking way too long to build them. We're going absolutely nowhere with these Liberals. Canada is releasing a new methane regulation for oil and gas sector requiring a 72% reduction by 2030. That's 4 years from now, Canada. Alberta will get until 2035 to reduce its methane by 75%. Red tape never ends in Canada. David Eby is single-handedly destroying the province of British Columbia. And when he's asked questions, you are not going to believe his response.
You were Attorney General when the Interpretation Act was brought in. Your government closed debate on that amendment. A lot of critics say you're personally responsible for a lot of the crisis with property rights and in Aboriginal issues in this province. How do you respond to those criticisms?
Well, I mean, that's obvious nonsense. The issue around Indigenous land claims, Section 35 of the Constitution, has been an issue in British Columbia for a long time. As a province that was settled without treaties, the Chilcotin decision, which was concluded in 2014, before reform government, established for the first time a First Nations title over a massive swath of central British Columbia. We just marked the 10-year anniversary of that court decision. So the idea that Indigenous issues have just shown up in this province, I don't know who told you that, but that's not true. What is true is that our government has really tried to get away from courts and to focus on agreements. Because when you go to court, you get unpredictable outcomes. And I think that the last couple months have been a really good example of our anxiety about trying to stay out of court and trying to reach resolution at the table. The issues that private property owners face in Richmond, for example, came because we weren't able to get resolution outside of the court process with the Cowichan First Nations. And that was complicated case involving 3 different First Nations that did not agree with each other about the direction forward. So these are hard and challenging issues. I don't pretend they're easy.
Oh, wow. He not only did he blame the courts, which offloads his own wrongdoing, but he also blames the First Nations for not getting along. This guy used to be a lawyer. He should know better. He should know that this would directly go to the courts. He should also know that our property rights in British Columbia are all up in air, and it has everything to do with him. I'm going to show you guys something pretty cool and show you how simple this thing is. I'm going to leave this website and pin it in the comment section. How do you find your MP? All you have to do is click on the link that I'm going to provide you. Let's just say you live in Ontario. I'm going to click on Ontario, and every single MP in Ontario is listed right here. Let's pick Tim Hodgson. Click on him, click on contact, and then boom, here is his email address. So what I encourage everybody to do is click and find your MP. Send them an email and telling them you don't want Bill C2, Bill C8, Bill C9, and Bill C15. I'm going to write for you the email that you should be sending your MP. You just copy and paste it from the comment section, click on this website, find your MP, and send them an email today. Also, this brand new website that I showed you on my last episode called recalleb.ca is up. You should definitely go to this website and you could take this poll. Check this out. Do you think David Eby is unfit to be Premier of BC? 12,100 votes, 98% says yes. Does David Eby need to be recalled? 12,154 votes, 99% says yes. All of these other ones are also 12,100 votes, 99% for all of these as well. See, whoever made this site is a genius because in 123 days and 12 hours, David Eby could be recalled with a petition. That's the earliest date. So they're getting ahead of it. So what they're doing is doing the recall registration. Unfortunately, if you do not reside in David Eby's Vancouver Point Grey riding, you can't recall him. But there only needs to be 14,000 signatures that represents 40% of the vote, and he could be recalled. If David Eby is recalled, the NDP are finished because they have a majority government by 1 seat. That would trigger an election. We are counting down in BC. Let's get this recall going. Check this website out for yourself. That's it for today's report. Canada's like a snowball at the top of a mountain. It's heading downhill, growing bigger and bigger. It's nearing the edge of the cliff, ready to explode. 75% of Canadians want pipelines. Mark Carney and David Eby are in the way. Danielle Smith has a plan to go around BC and go through Washington, eliminating tens of thousands of jobs for British Columbia and billions for our economy. We got all these bad bills that are coming down the pipe. Send your email to your MP. We need to work together during these times because without us, we are going to explode. I'll see you on the next report.